Thanks, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for staying behind for the last presentation, hopefully, of the day. Two to come still. Okay, good. Apologies for that, so I feel better already. So thanks very much, Darren and then Graham, for inviting me and letting AESIN have a bit of a stage today. Thoroughly enjoyed the conference. We've got our own conference on the 1st of September, shameless plug. And you're all welcome to register for that. It's a great benchmark for me to see how this event was run, and it's a great event, and well done to the organizers for that as well. And what I thought was, even at 35, I'm learning a lot about technology and what's happening in the world. I'm not 35. And the presentation earlier from Jenny was a real delight. I thought a real tangent, but I thought it's great because having taken over as the AESIN director at the start of the year, one of the things that people kept pointing out to me was that it's a community of pale, male, stale, and frail members. And I certainly tick one of those boxes. Hopefully one box I'll never tick. But I think I'm heading towards ticking some of those boxes. But there is something there, certainly for me, in that community to think about how we address that topic. So who am I? So Gunny Dadiala, I have been in the automotive industry for over 30 years. So yes, I started very young. And I've seen the growth of electronics in the car industry. It's like crazy. And I started very simple electronic systems, switches and lights, window lift control, sunroof control, very primitive systems. But within a decade, that had moved on to technologies that were looking at network systems. You know, we were using CAN technology, and that then evolved to FlexRay, and we were using optical networks. And right now, through that sort of revolution of change, we're right now at another cusp of change, which is around connected and autonomous vehicles and all the new challenges that brings along with us. And so in my effort to shape what AESIN does for the next 5 or 10 years, it's really what we're thinking about is how we develop the technologies for the future. So just a bit about AESIN. So there's a question, how many of you actually had heard of AESIN before it was mentioned yesterday? Oh, that's good to see. So I'm not the loner here. So I was a bit nervous, thinking I'm the only car person here, but I'm glad to see that you're all familiar with it as well. So AESIN itself is a member-based community. It's a paid membership scheme. And I've had a number of you, thank you very much for approaching me asking about membership, and I'm happy to share details. But I will talk about other mechanisms of engagement through the TTF. I've set a vision for where we want to be, which is really about being an outstanding member community, developing technologies for the future, to be thought leaders and contribute to the mobility agenda. So there's lots of words in there, and I've stolen a few from other communities, but I think they're very pertinent for what we're talking about at the moment. And I'll talk about some of the challenges from the automotive space in a minute as well around what we're trying to achieve here. We have over 70 members. And my very first focus for this year was, as we leave the pandemic, was to get more events out there so people can engage and start talking. So I've been planning now, and I've got about 20 events, everything from webinars, so getting our members to come and talk about technologies on virtual platforms, which is an easy access point, to our flagship conference, which is in September, which really is it's the premium event for automotive electronics, to then very specific conferences. We have a security conference, we have a perception sensors conference in June as well, targeting specific areas of interest for us. So those are underway, and again, those are advertised, and we'll advertise those more in the future as well. We have 4 active work streams, and it's great to see because we have a really nice overlap with the TTF and the DFT missions as well. We have an ADAS and highly automated vehicles group, which is looking to see how we can make an impact in the technology elements of that. We have a very active security group headed by Thales, and that's looking at some of the tangential challenges of liability and how security can impact large fleets of vehicles and what vehicle manufacturers need to consider in managing security. We have a clean and connected work stream led by Unix Traffic. So Gary was here yesterday, as you might have seen. So that's our key conduit into the relationship with TTF, which I'll talk about in a minute. One of the key things for me is building strong relationships with affiliate organizations. So the UK Auto Council is the premier or the key link into government for intervention and guidance on where we should be investing for the future. And we're part of the ICAM work group there, so we're leading the supply chain bit because we're keen to think about what technology supply chains mean for the automotive industry. You'll see there also Zenzik, so Bhavin here is going to be on later on. So we're working with Zenzik on supply chain activities, understanding where the UK should position itself for the future. And the other one there you'll see, I won't mention the DFT, of course, we're here today. Cenex, we're looking to see how we support their activities. But the TTF, so we have an MOU in place. So before I joined, Paul Jarvie, fantastic activity with Darren and Andy Graham to put up an MOU, really about bilateral communication, how we share information and knowledge between our two organizations, how we can build those relationships between the vehicle side and the infrastructure side, because I see a predominantly infrastructure side group here looking to see how we get into vehicles. And on the vehicle side, there's actually a very disjointed world at the moment, and especially in the UK, where we're really trying to understand how we penetrate our OEM organizations. And then seeing how we can influence policy. And the big thing for me is, how we then go about working together in collaboration. So that's underway, and today was really pivotal for me because this is the first time I'm engaging under the banner of the MOU. So what's going on in the automotive industry? There's lots happening. There's lots. Autonomy, of course, is a hot topic anyway, and I won't dwell on that too much. Albeit to say that it's a long game to full autonomy. We shouldn't get excited about having fully autonomous vehicles on our roads yet. The road's long. One of the things that I learned from an engineer from Volvo, and you'd expect Volvo to know what they're talking about. He talked about autonomy's role in improving safety of automated features on vehicles. He said, we may never get to fully autonomous vehicles, but look at the acceleration of safety and safety-related features on vehicles it's caused us to take on. So the interventions caused us to think hard about safety. And I think that's exciting, that we should think about more automation for safety before we think about full autonomous deployments. So the big challenges right now. So semiconductor supply, everyone knows about this. We've seen from our industry reports and our connections that because of the challenges of supply, piece cost prices are going up for semiconductor components. Lead times can go up to 70 weeks. That's a year and a half, waiting for components to land. That's putting a massive pressure on the automotive industry, electronics industry at large. And the impact of that is thinking about, what do we do in the UK? Are we actually going to have a go at creating supply chains in the UK for semiconductors? Or have we isolated ourselves because we're now not even part of Europe or the EU? And the EU has a massive initiative to put money into creating foundries there, and the US also. But what are we going to do? Do we wait and rely on that? So there's a big challenge for the UK here in the car industry. Connectivity, which is a hot topic, of course. So in my conversations with OEMs in the UK, I thought there were some big challenges around connectivity, but there's some very fundamental stuff around when there's regulations coming in place or standards that are imposed about how do we create frameworks from our communities to help companies deliver some of those necessities. So we've got the over-the-air updates and cybersecurity, the UNECE protocols that came out. The question was, where was the industry to help us to implement these with the expertise we have? And I thought, that's a great insight. Maybe we should be thinking about how do we create support for our implementers in the UK. Electrification, again, talked about in the last 2 days. The supply of raw materials, and then the removal and disposal or reuse of raw materials is a big challenge and a big topic as well, and whether that's actually sustainable or not. Gigafactories, so we're aware of gigafactories and great announcements that we are creating gigafactories in the UK. There are over 150 gigafactories already across the world, but the projections are we need more than 200 more to fulfill the potential demand for EVs over the next few decades. That's a lot of gigafactory. And then charging infrastructure, of course, that's been talked about extensively today, and I won't talk too much about it, apart from saying that some of the future-looking technologies that drive charging technologies, based on silicon carbide, for example, we're pioneering the way in the UK, and we've got to make sure we foster that technology and make sure that we build with UK capability. So there are many experts in the room that know far more about ITS than I do. However, just a brief interlude into what I see as the challenges for the car industry. So I do feel there's a bit of a friction between what the public sector needs and what the car industry wants to do. So there's a bit of a control thing there. Public sector is all about, fleet management or roads management, efficiencies, optimization, congestion, safety. The car industry needs to sell cars. It's about customer experience. What do we do with the data? How do we monetize the data? And then how do we architect our vehicles? And we're talking about software-driven architectures now. So I was listening to a talk by Volkswagen, their head of vehicle and cloud platform, saying that we have to now architect from the vehicle all the way to the cloud. That's a seamless connection of data and software services. And that means they want to have full control of that. So we're sitting here thinking, well, actually, we've got all this wonderful infrastructure that we can provide. And the car companies are saying, well, actually, we want to channel our own virtual network through whatever is happening here. And that's a challenge. In addition, ITS, G5 versus 5G, where's the winner? Is there a winner? There's a lot of debate still going on after many years. Having multiple systems on a vehicle creates cost, and the vehicle manufacturer then has to carry that cost or then pass it on to us as a consumer. 5G, lots of claims made. Working at the university before I joined AESIN, University of Warwick, we did a lot of measurement research, and we found that, it's debatable about some of the figures around latency, especially when you start putting occlusion. You have trees, branches, buildings, buses coming in the way of your 5G antenna. Your signal levels drop, and you get interference as well, and that affects performance. So what do you trust as a trustable source of connectivity? Maybe that's where we start to think about how we overlap the two technologies. Or do we, do car companies take the VW view of, well, okay, the ASFINAG initiative in Austria will roll out ITS G5, or somebody's going to roll it out. Maybe, we have a large a council or a borough says, okay, we're going to roll it out. Transport for West Midlands or Transport for Manchester says, we roll out ITS G5, and then we allow the world to come and use it. Maybe, I don't know. VW certainly have taken that view, said we'll equip the vehicles. But in the Far East, where ITS 5G is not being backed, we'll go for a 5G strategy. And so, so there's a dichotomy there around technology solutions within vehicles. And coverage is a big issue. If you want to have connectivity, you have to have coverage. And then where's the monetization aspects? Are the MNOs, the Vodafones of the world, prepared to go and cover highways in rural areas at a loss just to get the business, or not? This was quite boring for me. I thought this is great that car companies are recruiting engineers that want to do connectivity. So over the last 2 years, there's a 5-fold increase in the number of jobs advertised. And that's great. That means there's a demand for what we want to do, even on the vehicle side. And it's just about how then we join that together with where we want to go. So given the challenges of the OEM and the difficulty in penetrating OEMs, a lot of organizations come to me within AESIN and say, can you get us a seat on the table with JLR? Can we go and talk to JLR? Because people think it's very easy to get into an OEM and try and sell. It's not. One, they'll have their own plans and their own strategies. Secondly, to qualify a product to get onto a vehicle can take 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Not just the technology, but you've got to get the process capability, the quality assurance, your liability sorted out, and then prove that you can manufacture at scale. So maybe that's not the opportunity. Maybe the opportunity is everything else outside the OEM. So freight and logistics was mentioned, and telematics is already prevalent in that industry. And we were talking, in my last role, we were talking to Royal Mail, I can say in these 4 walls, and who were very concerned about driver behavior. They said, driver behavior, poor driver behavior costs us a lot of money, tens of millions of pounds, either because they crash the vehicles or they damage the vehicles and the vehicles are down, we have to repair them, or then because of fuel economy. They're driven so poorly that we lose money just on the fact that they're not driven very well. So if we could understand how drivers drive, and that means actually observing drivers, driver behavior monitoring, we could potentially act either in real time or then analyze off-road and offline and understand where we make impact. And that sort of data transfer may create an opportunity for use cases for things like, for technologies like 5G or other cellular network technologies. And it's maybe those use cases that we have to be clear on the vehicle side that can then join the two worlds together. And so that's the challenge. Is there an aftermarket opportunity that we should be harnessing rather than the OEMs that may not be willing to talk to us? And then this, Gary shared this yesterday. So this is our framework within the clean and connected work stream in AESIN. It may not be very clear. The key point here is there's a lot of stuff we can do and we could do and we should do. And this, for us, was a framework to start discussions around where the opportunity might lie for the UK in terms of future R&D activity. And it's really, for me, the most pertinent thing, the column on there is the one on the right. What's the business model? You know, where's the opportunity for business, for technology companies, for local government or councils? It may be different metrics. You know, where's the safety angle? Where's the efficiency angle? But I think those metrics are important to start to tease out. And that's really, this is my last slide. So that's where I think the opportunity for us to collaborate with the TCF is, to start to bring some of those frameworks on the table and then bring in experts to say, let's go and figure out where that overlap is between vehicle side and infrastructure side, and where the use cases are, and then what's the sweet spot for us all to be working in and talking about. And we need to create those forums to get those conversations going. And then build collaborations, you know, let's go and hunt for some money and create some exciting projects around those. And then create the ambition, because I genuinely feel, you know, we have to have a bit of a fire in the belly for wanting to do these things. And on the car side, I'm pushing that agenda in AESIN to say, well, who's got the fire in the belly to have a go at this on the vehicle side, because we need that in the UK right now, because we're at a transition point. That's me. Thank you very much. I hope that's okay. Thank you very much.